Guys, welcome to the show. I'm Nisha Rahim, a content producer here at Yahoo. And of course, we have...
I'm Ronald, also a content producer at Yahoo Southeast Asia. We're very happy to welcome you to our video episode today. We have a very special guest, and Nisha can introduce her.
And we are very, very thrilled to have Ms. Karyen Chai, who is the psychologist as well as a counselor at Thoughtful Chat. And I gotta say, Karyen is a familiar name because she has shared her expertise in our news articles for quite a bit. So Karyen, we're so happy to have you here. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. I'm very excited to be here today because I think we have a very exciting topic to talk about today. Yes.
Absolutely.
It's pretty juicy.
Yes. So Ron, what are we doing today?
So I'm sure everybody has sort of listened and checked in with their friends and family, and you realize scams are quite a huge issue nowadays, right? It's like left, right, center, everywhere. Every day you hear a new scam victim. It's happening a lot, right? So we're kind of curious and want to deep dive into this topic. Of course, Nisha will hit the first part of this whole video about why scams are happening, the mental health effects of scams.
Yeah, and rightly said, Ron, scammers, they don't discriminate. So you could be a business tycoon to the new kid on the block. Anyone could be a target. And actually, what is scary is, just based on the figures and the numbers, like last year alone, 660.7 million scam victims have lost their money. Yeah, and that's an increase compared to $632 million in 2021. If my math is correct, so that means they've lost about $1.3 billion in just 2 years. And these numbers are absolutely terrifying. So today, I think it's not only about the financial losses that these people actually face, it's also about the emotional losses, right? Imagine losing your heart and money to a scam artist just like that. And that's why we have you, Karyen, because we want to sort of understand, and of course with your valuable insights, to give some tips to our viewers on how they can actually navigate this emotional aftermath of a scam.
Right.
So without further ado, maybe let's get to it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think for scams, you're right. It's left, right, center, everywhere. Online, offline. I don't know, third line maybe. So it's definitely everywhere, and it's very tiring to keep a watch out for scams all the time, right? So once we let our guard down, scammers can get in there. So absolutely, when we have scams, when we encounter scams and we fall for scams, we may feel feelings such as guilt, and usually we can also feel like, why does this happen to me? We can feel very stupid, very silly. We may feel like we are incompetent and start losing confidence in ourselves and our own ability to judge facts, because these are things that happen to other people. These are things that happen to old people. These are things that happen to stupid people. But that's not true, because scams honestly happens to everyone. And I think you guys have the figures on, who scams happen to and who fall for the scams. So it can happen to anyone. There's no need to feel silly at all, because for some reason scammers are getting really smart these days as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Karyen, it's very interesting because one of the things that I notice when I interview a scam profile, it's that feeling of constant self-blame. The thing that they always tell me is they feel like they're stupid, they feel that they're fools for falling for it. How can victims sort of overcome that self-blame?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I think blaming yourself is a very natural response. And yes, when something like this happen, right, there's no one else to blame. One thing is that, think about it as a learning lesson. It could be a very painful learning one. And it does take time to get out of that self-blame, right? So think about the situation that you were in. There were a lot of factors that make you make that decision. We don't always make the smartest decisions. Our decisions are based on, yes, our ability, but also the environment. So when scams happen, it could be under a time crunch, right? You have to transfer me that money now, otherwise you would lose this or that. Think about the kind of person you're talking to. The scammer, he can look like someone or seem like someone who is in authority. So we usually would tend to fall for authority figures a lot more, because we believe that these are people in authority. They can make us get into trouble if we don't follow their instructions, right? So there's also a lot of other environments, like even the temperature makes a difference, right? When it's hotter, we just want to get out of that heat and get into that aircon.
Right.
So there's a lot of environmental factors. It's not just because we are dumb, we are stupid, that's why we fall for it.
Yeah. And also, Karen, there's also this part about real building their confidence. Because immediately, when you fall for a scam, it kind of hits really hard, your confidence and what you want to believe in. Is there a way to sort of start to build that confidence again?
Yeah. So yes, I think definitely. So number one is to realize that it's not all your fault. It's not all because of your mistake. It's because of the other environments. And scammers really try very hard to make you fall for it, right? So then the second way is to look at how can you make you believe in yourself again. And this can be building skills, critical thinking skills, being more aware of what makes you make the decisions, such as like I said earlier, the environment, right? The people who's conveying this message, the situation itself when this message is delivered. So think of all of this and understand that these are what can affect our decision making, and sometimes the wrong decisions can be made in that way. So understand that, and then think of how we can build ourselves up to make better decisions in the future going forward.
Absolutely. Karyen, I have to also ask you, because you have seen various clients, has there been any significant clients that you noticed sort of, had gone through a scam and is trying to overcome that? How is it challenging for them based on, because I would imagine different cases have different sort of time periods to overcome it. Maybe you could share any significant findings or anything like that.
Can't say any significant findings, but definitely I think there's some people who after they fall for a scam or they fall for something that some of them are like scam gray areas, like for example signing a package long term, and that's not a decision that I want to make at that point, but I did, right? So so some of the things that people can do is to start to doubt themselves, and the other thing that was not mentioned is also to start to justify that decision because of a cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance happens when we have a behavior and a belief that do not match. So when these do not match, we try to close that gap. So usually the behavior has already happened, so we try to justify why we have that behavior.
I see.
So for example, we get scammed, so we give money to the scammer. That's a behavior. Our belief is that I do not want to fall for scam.
Right.
So we start to justify it by saying that, oh yeah, because I'm just trying to donate money. It's going to a good cause, that money is going back to the economy. So we start to justify that. So that's where we want to think, okay, stop, recognize that there is a gap, maybe recognize that that is indeed a scam, and do not make that justification, because that does not help with us moving forward and not making the same mistakes going forward.
Exactly. Yeah. It's true. Actually, a lot of them, when we interview scam victims as well, I mean, they tend to sort of overcompensate as well because they want to validate their feelings. Yes. And you kind of sort of feel that.
Yes.
Of course, another thing I wanted to ask you, because, in terms of the resources to support these scam victims, I remember we had this conversation before in one of my articles. You mentioned about how sometimes people find it a bit tough to actually sort of to seek psychological intervention. Firstly, because of the cost. Yeah. Secondly, you mentioned that, they're a bit hesitant because they're like, I can talk to my friends, why do I need a psychologist or a counselor? Do you think this kind of intervention would actually support them, or depends on their situation?
I think talking to a psychologist and a professional helps a bit more, because usually with scams, it comes with a lot of shame. When we tell our loved ones about the scam that happened to us, they can feel very emotional as well.
Right.
The good thing about a psychologist and a professional helper, they don't feel that. We have that detachment. It's not that we don't care about you. We do.
Okay, this is a warning. PSA. We care. They care.
We care.
Yeah.
And we also know you're already getting enough of this emotional response
Right.
from your friends and family.
Yeah.
Right? But we are also trained to have an emotional detachment to see what's the next step that can happen. Right? As much as I would like to say, hey, let's travel back in time, not let that happen. I do not have that yet. Otherwise, I will have a Nobel Prize in physics. But I don't.
Okay, I think we shouldn't be having too much fun.
No,
Talk
yes.
about scams, Guys, scams is serious. We're trying to, no, but as you mentioned,
Yes, but it's good to have some humor to manage this.
Right.
So yes, we do care. And the way that we try to help you is, as we talked about, how to rebuild your confidence, how to build some of these critical thinking skills so that we don't fall for the scam again, and also how to prevent you from making that justification and validation to validate your action falling for scams.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And do you sort of see a shift now in people being more willing to seek psychological, intervention and help and support?
Yeah, I think like with understanding, people are definitely more willing to, and we have a lot of options nowadays that are available. So, for example, we have a lot of apps on the market right now that are using professionals at a rather low cost. Now, it's very different from the traditional, face-to-face, but we do have other resources such as asynchronous counseling, which is what I do at Thoughtful Chat. So, asynchronous basically means that we don't do it real time. So, you text me. It's like a regular text, and then I text you back. Good thing is I don't ghost you ever. So that's a pro.
No mixed signals, just direct.
Yeah, just
Wow.
direct. Yeah.
No ghosting.
No ghosting.
Yeah, no ghosting. That's I think it's a guarantee. Can I say it's a guarantee? I don't think so.
But what if you're preoccupied? I'm sure there is a 1-2 minutes delay. No, but I get what you mean.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not
having someone-
immediate for sure. Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's why it's called asynchronous. So it's not immediate, but I don't leave you on red for 2 days and not respond unless it's a weekend. So. I do.
Well, no, but that's reassuring, definitely, because people who need that kind of support, right, Ron? It's definitely something that people would take great pleasure in to know that someone is there. Karyen, your insights have been, as usual, great as always. I think we're moving on to the next segment, where, of course, Ron
Hey.
is uncovering. Hey,
Ooh,
Ron has
I'm uncovering.
uncovering. He's doing some investigation on the public's awareness of scams and how they deal with it. So, Ron, maybe you could share with us, some of your findings.
So maybe to give people a little bit of context, right? So we went on the ground to Orchard Road, right? We did a Vox Spot interview with Singaporeans. So I approached them. I was like, "Hey, how do you feel about scams?" And they're like, "What?" Right?
Are you a scam?
Are you a scam? Yeah, I could be the scam, right?
No, the question is, did you get scammed though?
Oh, I wish I did, but I didn't.
You wish you did.
what?
Because I wanted to experience, it's like a full-on experience, right? To kind of, But I mean, I wanted to put myself in the psyche of getting scammed, and then ask.
And then
elaborate
bill it
on
to
this.
Yahoo.
Yes,
It's
the
like-
ability.
Doing the groundwork.
Doing the groundwork, yes.
yeah.
Sorry, sidetrack, right? So we're going back to Vox Sports, and I interviewed, I think, 4 Singaporeans about how they feel about scams. So maybe to start off, we can sort of show you the video about some of the responses about how they feel about scams, what are the mental health effects of being scammed. So
I'll be very surprised if any of them say, "Yeah, I feel good about scams." And you're like, "Yes, what's your name again?"
Let's hope not. Oh
Yeah, I'm nervous now.
oh,
no. I haven't seen it too, so I'm
Okay.
we're
Yes.
gonna watch together first time as well.
what do you think about people who fall for scams?
Greedy in general. That's my initial thought. There's also the ones that maybe are not well informed. Nowadays, the scammers are getting more and more intelligent.
I think even the most educated people can fall for scams as well. Very young kids or even to old people. There's a very wide range of people who actually fall for scams.
Even when you are very cautious, there are some times that you just let your guard down and you may actually fall for even the most dumbest of scams, in your opinion, right?
What would you do if you yourself got scammed?
I think the first approach I will probably do is just to report it.
For example, if they got my credit card details, I would definitely approach the bank or call the police or report it, make a report. And also to warn my fellow colleagues or friends, because I feel that sometimes they're able to get mass contacts, so they're able to send a single link to phish your email through a whole organization. Yeah.
Maybe just trace your steps or contact your bank and just freeze your account and stuff. I've known cases who got their money back. The first thing that people will probably do is panic, but actually there are ways to get it back so I think just don't lose hope. I mean, if it's a really, really huge amount, then you can panic, but I guess you still have hope to get it back.
Do you think there are sort of mental health effects of getting scammed?
For sure. I mean, especially if it's your hard-earned money that you've gotten scammed on, it's natural to, you could potentially get depressed about it.
If I were scammed, I think I'll be very upset. For not so much about the money, but the fact that I was foolish enough to fall for it. The bigger the magnitude, of course, then the mental stress will be there, especially if the part where, remember I was telling you that if they are unable to recover the money back.
So it's something that we shouldn't take lightly. Yeah, and I guess if you know someone who's been scammed, you want to be there for them. There's a limit to what the police can do for you. But I suppose friend support, family support, that's the only way to get through it.
Oh, definitely. I think there are people who still kind of suffered from, the backlash of being scammed and stuff. They will probably feel like they'll blame themselves for it, and then they will just keep thinking about it and be like, oh, like, why am I so stupid to fall for these kind of things? But it will have a long-lasting effect on those people. Yeah.
I think, if the scam is just you lose like $2, you wouldn't worry too much about it. But it depends on the magnitude and the context of the person who is being scammed.
What sort of advice would you give to people to avoid from getting scammed?
Okay, so what advice? I would say that always get a second opinion.
Don't act on your greed, or just keep a clear mind when people just come to you with like, oh, this is a good deal and stuff like that. Maybe just take a step back.
Just be very careful. Just be very careful. Don't divulge private information, especially about your bank accounts, to people you don't know.
Be aware. That's all I can say, and then also read up on the news.
Wow.
Yeah, lots of responses by Singaporeans who have a lot of thoughts about scams, right? So maybe make it easier for you. So there are 4 different sort of questions we're exploring in scams, right? So the first one is generally the outlook towards scams. Some of them said that people will be greedy if they kena scammed or if they were not informed, not educated, right? So I'm kind of interested to know. Actually, could you share a bit more about what the psychology behind scammers could be? Why they want to scam people?
Right. All right. So I think scammers, because there's a lot of them right there, they want the same thing as us, right? Which is money. So scammers definitely do want your money, just like we want our money. So that's just the reason that they scam. So scammers could be involved in scams for a variety of reasons. Number one, they could really maliciously be involved in it because they want to get money the easiest way, the fastest way. Second, scammers can actually be unaware that they are scamming. So they can really think that, hey, I'm actually doing a good thing here. They are that middleman that sometimes we overlooked, right? So these can be the scammers. And they could also be well-intentioned scammers as well. So scammers who are doing it because they think that, hey, I'm really helping others. So an example of that would be, for example, some scammers who think that, hey, I'm really helping this other individual by introducing maybe this product or this specific financial, transferring of money around. I'm really helping the other person, right? So there could be these 3 types of scams. So usually when we think about scammers, we think about the first type, malicious, which is probably most of it, right? Most of them. So that's kind of the psychology of scammers. They could want your money maliciously, unintentionally, or even well-intentioned as well.
Wow. And then maybe to kind of reverse the role, right? What do you think is the psychology behind people who get scammed? I'm sure people are generally smart or they're knowledgeable, right?
Yes.
So what do you think is the psychology behind falling for a scam?
Yeah, so scams, why people fall for scams? It's complex, right? So we talked about it could be that people are unaware, uneducated. It could also be partly a little bit of greed. So I think that's also some of the perception there as well. It's because of greed that people fall for it. Right. However, not always true, because we can fall for scams not because we are greedy, but because there is some other demands within the environment. So for example, there might be a time crunch. You need to do this within this time. You might get into trouble if you don't do this right now. So for example, I had a call from IRAS, our tax bureau. In case any one of you are not paying taxes yet, you will be encountering them soon. Right?
Better pay your taxes.
Yeah, so they call me up on WhatsApp. And I knew it was a scam, right? But if I were not aware that it was a scam, it sounded really serious. This guy was like, hey, why did you not pay your taxes?
Yeah.
Which, come on, it sounds a bit unprofessional. But some of them can sound really professional. It's like, hello, this is calling from the IRS, using the correct accent, correct tone, and all of that, right? And you have not paid your taxes. You need to, you need to pay your taxes immediately. We can get this settled for you, but you need to do it by tonight, right? So this is also a scam that, it's not as necessarily out of greed. I'm just worried that I get into trouble. I really want to pay my taxes. I want to be a good citizen. So not necessarily out of greed per se. So a lot of times with scams, there's some time crunch around it, right? And I think the third type of scam, which is the one that I'm most scared of, which has to do with technology.
Yikes.
Yeah, we are on our phones all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
Unless you are not, then congratulations. I don't know how you're watching this, but
Do give us tips. We need it.
tap into the consciousness.
Digital nomads here, so we
Yeah.
Perpetually alright, 24/7 on our phones.
Yeah, so we have our phones with us. We have a lot of apps on there. Nowadays, every little thing asks you to download an app.
Yeah.
Your banking app is on there.
Right.
Your other SingPass is on there. And some of these apps, we are trusting a lot of them to have good security measures.
Right.
But we are not sure, honestly, unless you are studying computer science or doing computer security. I don't think most lay people know what we are doing with our phones, to be very honest, right? So download an app, verification, good stuff. Da-da-da-da-da. You may have downloaded a Trojan horse. I think this is the right term.
Trojan horse.
Trojan
Yeah.
horse, where it starts mining your information. We don't know. Like
Yes.
a lot of this, we don't know. So some of it, it's not really our fault, right? It could be just that we have scanned something by accident. Nowadays, a lot of menus are scanning QR codes. So there's a lot of ways that scammers can get your money. So it's not just you giving consent. Some of it could be scammed. Some people could be scammed without them knowing as well. So yeah, there's a lot of reasons people can get scammed, and it's really no one particular type. So what we can do about it is to be educated, be informed, and be very careful with our devices, just like how you would be careful with your homes as well.
Maybe let me circle back a little bit to you experiencing the scam yourself, right? So when you were on the call, how did you know it was a scammer? How could you tell?
Okay, so number one, it was on WhatsApp. Number two, they were using a US number.
Yeah. Seriously? A US number? Oh my
Right?
god.
But this is not the very intelligent scammers, right?
Clearly.
They were not talking the right tone. It sounded very casual. Hello, you have not paid your taxes. Someone was complaining about it. So I had a bit of fun with the scammer. I was like, really, who was complaining? Is it my boss? I don't have a boss, right? But they don't know that. It's like, who is it complaining? Is it my boss? He's supposed to pay my taxes, right? Why don't you talk? And then he hung up on me. A scammer hung out on me. I don't know how I feel about that.
I love it. You just psycho.
Let me just say, he picked the wrong victim. You pick a freaking psychologist. Clearly it was not his day. Because, you know, you don't play this kind of things, right? Yeah.
To be fair, I don't think they picked. They just like messed down everyone.
No, but it's their luck. Very unlucky. Imagine calling a psychologist and be like, hey, never pay your taxes. What? Yeah.
Wait, so let's say if somebody were in your situation and they received a call, right? What would you advise them to do? Would you advise them to do the same thing, which is to sort of reverse psychology? Yeah, how would you,
If you're unsure about it, still be respectful. But if it's calling from any government agencies, you can put down the phone, call them back. And because our system here is very, I think it's very clear. So call them back at their official number. Check that it's a gov.sg website before you get that number and not just from any forum. All right. Check that it's the correct number. Call them back, and they'll be able to provide you with that information. So you don't have to give all your information in that call itself.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I mean, so you've nicely sort of segued into the next part, which is what one can do if they get scammed, right? So, as you can tell from the video earlier, I think a lot of people just panic, right? The first instance is, oh, I just got scammed, right?
Yeah.
So, are there sort of tips you can advise people who have just gotten scammed, right, on how to manage the situation, manage the panic or the anxiety over getting scammed?
So if it's very fresh, some of the audience that have already provided some good suggestion. So keep calm, don't panic, because when you start panicking, you start having a lot of emotional reaction, and this may not be very helpful, right? So what we're going to do is to keep calm, know a few things to do. So for example, if you have lost if you have given your bank information, call your bank, call your official bank. You might be able to, if it's a credit card, you might be able to terminate some of these charges to prevent charges from going out. You might be able to get the bank to stop the bank transfer. I don't know how banks work, maybe, depending on how that transfer was done, right? Call them as soon as possible. Don't wait. I think some banks now also have a direct scam line. So when you call their official number, you can press a button to expedite the calling, so you don't have to like press, and then 15 minutes later you finally get to talk to someone. So press that scam button. It's usually at the first. I called a bank recently, so they have like like it's in the first kind of like page, right? So call them. If you have given your OTP, I don't know, does SingPass have a number that they call?
I think they should be able to alert.
I think, yeah, I'm
there
pretty
should
sure
be an
they do
alert
have a
number.
hotline
Yeah.
to kind of,
Yeah.
Yeah. So call these official numbers. Yeah. So call these official numbers before you call your friends and family.
Right.
Yeah.
So actually, on the topic of friends and families, right? So let's say if you had a friend or family member who got scammed, right? So do you have any advice on how, they can help their friend or their family member sort of cope with getting scammed, right? Yeah. Do you? Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the advice that we will give you here. So try to stay calm for their sake, right? Otherwise, everyone is just getting very emotional.
Right.
Stay calm as much as possible and see what's the next step. So again, if it's very fresh, call the official numbers. If not, then help them, listen to them, how they're feeling about this, and try to rebuild their confidence about their own ability to judge situations and make decisions.
Basically give really good support lah. Be a good support system. Okay, so I guess we're down to the last part of it, right? So I've asked people on the street on what kind of advices or best practices towards avoiding scams, getting scammed, right? So some of them say like get a second opinion. Some of them say don't act on greed, or just be careful, don't divulge personal information, right? So maybe for you, who being on that side of almost getting scammed or facing scam victims, right? So do you have any sort of last advice for people to avoid getting scammed?
Look out for some signs of scam. If it's something that you need to do urgently, it's probably a scam. If it's something that so I think there's also a lot of job scams as well. So job scams, usually they divert you to like different platforms. So for example, they reach out to you on Telegram. They say, can I send you messages on WhatsApp? Then can I don't know what else. I only got to the WhatsApp part, right? So I don't know what the next step is. Because I usually just bombard them with a lot of questions, and then I think at that point they were like, this is not worth it anymore.
You're actually very nice. I think if I know it's a scam, I just kind of like delete. On Telegram, you just like, yeah.
Block. I just had it yesterday. Yesterday, someone tried to offer me a job. As I was much intrigued about it. No, I love Yahoo, sorry. But like, I was literally, yep, no block. Oh, you kind of can tell, like you mentioned. The numbers are weird.
Yeah, the numbers are weird. The tones is weird. They are very inconsistent. Especially I think like when you're in the scamming zone, you just kind of send like automated messages. So I had another one, which they tell me that they are this company. So their profile says this company, and then I ask them, so what company is this for? They say another company. So I asked them, so what is the company that they had in their profile? They're like, what is that? And I took a screenshot of their profile. I'm like, this one. Have you forgotten your scam?
It's just out there, man. The lies are just not consistent.
It's like an identity crisis, actually.
Maybe I should ask them.
Let me tell you, the crisis, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So yes, I think like if you're really not sure about tech, block them immediately.
Yeah.
Because I really don't know what they can do. I'm kind of like just playing with the mouse at this point.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think stay alert, stay vigilant. If it's time crunch, there's no need to respond to it. If it's any government, police going to knock down your door, which my brother got as well. It's like, we are the police, we are outside your door right now, we are gonna knock down your door if you don't answer. It's like, no, just chill, go to the police station.
Wait, hold on, this is a scam? Sorry.
This is a scam, yeah. And we are gonna knock down your door, and then my brother's just like hang up on them. It's like, if you're the police, and then he went to the door and checked. It's like, yeah, I don't see anyone here.
Your brother's like, knock it down. I'm not.
Oh, are you sure you're the right door?
That's like a next level scam. Like, that's almost a threat, right? That's almost a...
Yeah. So if it's time crunch, stay calm. I guess I also do things with good conscience, so you know that the police is not gonna knock down your door anytime.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this episode. We've learned so much. Nisha, I'm sure you've learned lots also. I mean, wow, I never thought the scammer would threaten to... That's next level, right?
Listen to me, after this, we're going to be even more cautious, and maybe we might have a bit of fun as well, because checking out their inconsistency in their lives, right?
Yeah, you gotta give us tips on how to like psycho back, the scam.
Lesser though.
Yeah, I guess.
But definitely on a serious note, Karyen, I think what you mentioned about understanding that it's not your fault if you're being scammed, and really understanding that it takes time to recover from it. Understand that we don't really have to be so hard on ourselves. I think that's a really key thing, which I think a lot of us can take that key takeaway for today, definitely.
And also, if you get scammed, it's not necessarily because of you. There's a lot of other environments. The scammers are just getting really good.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a really good roundup, guys. If you want to find more content from Yahoo, you can find us on all social media platforms. Yahoo SG on Instagram, Yahoo Singapore on Facebook, Telegram channel on YouTube, Yahoo Southeast Asia.
And also, shameless plug, please do check out our articles. I think we did a lot of mental health related pieces on sg.yahoo.com, basically Yahoo's official page. So do check it out. I'm Nisha, Rahim, Ronald Go, and this is Karyen Chai. We look forward again, Karyen, to get more insights in future. Till then, stay scam free. That's the ending.